It's always a pleasure to visit China. This is actually my third time in China. I've been to several cities as part of media delegations. This one, it was my first time in Beijing. My first time in Shanghai. And it was also my first time on a high-speed train. It's very difficult to explain the experience, but definitely out of this world. We also were fortunate to go to Yihu, where we were able to see a chamber of commerce, if I should call it that, where African businesses share the same building with Chinese businesses. You can just go there directly, engage, discuss business. So I managed to get quite a number of phone numbers that I will definitely take back home. But the trip has been very useful in making me understand how Chinese engage in business and how Chinese view us as African business people. Yeah. I'm not just looking at importing from China, but I'm also looking at exporting from Zimbabwe to China. And a lot of our media colleagues are actually discussing along those lines. So yeah, it is a great opportunity. And it's actually, it came at the right moment. And China has opened the door for Africa through the zero tariff. Now it's the responsibility of us as Africans, our governments, to then walk through that door and exploit the opportunity that China has given. I mean, zero tariff, it's a brilliant offer, and Africa should really be ready to exploit that opportunity.
It's interesting, I think, because the last time I was here, it was more of politics, governance, diplomacy. So we were visiting all these government agencies, but this time it was about trade. I think something more simpler to digest and something that can easily be taken back home and be shared with the ordinary Ugandan. So this time the visit was more about opportunities to make money. It was more about the opportunities for Africans to do business, trade directly with Chinese. It was more about the opportunity for African products, including even already made small commodities, to find their way into this humongous Chinese market. I was particularly amazed when I saw some of the African artic crafts, that are at EU, at the global digital market, to see products that are made, for example, in Uganda, by women who are in very, very remote, deep villages. And all they know how to do, for example, is weave a basket. So for a woman like that to find their product making its way all these thousands of kilometers into China, I think it's a huge opportunity. And some of these products are sold at a higher price as we saw. So I think that industry can be developed more to benefit women like this. I think it's interesting to see these local women, and they are weaving their craft on this global market. So I really enjoyed the fact that this particular trip was more about business, trade, opportunities to make money, a little different from politics, governance, and diplomacy. So it's more something that can easily be shared with the ordinary Ugandan back home. I think what this forum will do is to design the narratives that we would like to carry forward in as far as China-Africa relations are concerned. For so many years, many people, the entire world, know China from the perspective of the Western world. What the Western world says about China is what we believe. So it's fortunate for the few of us to be able to come into China and to see what China is, physically experience the politics, the leadership, business, trade. When they talk about the Silk Road, these cooperations, the Belt and Road Initiative, the win-win cooperation. What does that look like from within China? And this media cooperation then also means China can also relate and understand Africa, tell stories about Africa from its own perspective, while Africa can also now start to write about China from its own perspective, not what the Western world thinks. It's an opportunity to debunk these rhetorics about China, which are often wrong, as China is portrayed in a way that does not serve Africa if we go by the Western narrative. So it's a huge opportunity, I think, to clear that air and have these two entities, Africa, the Global South, understand China in a way that is true, in a way that is respectful, in a way that is mutual, in a way that actually reflects what's on ground and what's happening in as far as the cooperation and the friendship is concerned.
I'll definitely want to see both China and Zimbabwean or African media houses move more beyond the strategies, the discussions, the papers, into solid, actionable tasks. For example, media exchanges will need Chinese. I know you once worked in Zimbabwe. Yes, we need more of you in Zimbabwe to be able to experience Zimbabwe and give the accurate perspective about Zimbabwe. But I'm happy about these exchanges that we're having such a forum because it gives us the first-hand experience to be able to report accurately about the Chinese culture, the personalities of the Chinese, your accurate success story. It's different from reporting from a perspective of interpretation when you imagine things. So these are very important, these forums where you get to discuss. But let's move from just the discussions, the presentation by our ministers, to actual media exchanges, production crew exchange programs, and things like that. I would want that for Zimbabwe and China. I think it's not very wise for us to be complaining about what an independent media bodies in the West are doing. Let's focus on what we can do. Let's work harder. Let's tell our stories as authentically as possible and not really worry about what the West is. They push their own agendas. We've got a good relationship as Africa with the Chinese. Let's focus on that. Let's empower more of our youth so that we can take control of the narrative. And in this day and age where the global is accessible online, we seriously can no longer be worried about what somebody else is saying. Because I'm a publisher. I just started online. There are many other upcoming social media influencers that from Africa who are actually being able to have their voices heard. So I think let's encourage more of our youth to tell the authentic African story, to tell the authentic Chinese story. And to be honest, I think there's great movement in that regard. You show us examples from Uganda in one of the presentations. That's that's the Ugandan story. And he didn't wait for CNN or any major news player to then give him direction, but he just came out and he was telling the authentic Ugandan story. So I think let's encourage our people, especially the young, to be able to express themselves freely, especially through social media.
I think more spaces to share and platforms like RedNote would work really well for that, for the stories to transcend what is happening in China that can benefit someone who is in Uganda, what is happening in Ethiopia that can benefit someone who is somewhere in the EU, what is happening in Kenya that can benefit someone in Inner Mongolia. So it's the ability to maintain a chain of stories and to make sure those circulate, and that the media platforms should be saturated there should be more and more platforms and different ways and avenues to share and also to get information. That is one of the ways we can strengthen our voice and be firm with our narrative in as far as the China-Africa relations are concerned. I think one role that I think has been really important is the opening up access. We saw these shops in Yeu yesterday where people are using social media to market and to access markets from around the world, especially Africa. And if you heard from the creator and the business lady earlier, how she got her first client from Nigeria, and that has given birth to so many clients from different parts of Africa who are buying very huge consignments of her products. So I think social media, the first thing is access. It's been a little limited, of course, with these other conventional, the older social media platforms. But now, with the discovery and formulation of new platforms like Red Note, I think the most important thing, especially for young people who hold the biggest market, they have the money, they move the money. These are our buyers. I think for them, social media will help with access, direct access and relationship, the business relationship between a business person, the entity, and the client. That access is really important. And it works both ways, not just for a Chinese being able to access the market in Uganda, but or Africa. But so many Africans are also looking for ways of getting into the Chinese market, whether they are suppliers, advisors, whether they are looking for commodities to go back and sell. That's also important. So the platforms will work very well if they're used both ways. It shouldn't be only a Chinese platform, like, WeChat is mostly Chinese, or Red Note should be mostly Chinese. No, we should find a way of making sure that it works all around between China and the global south, so that both can have mutual benefits from these platforms.
I think the beauty of social media, as she's mentioned, is the access, the reach. It automatically becomes, if you've got good content, your reach becomes global. But there's another interesting perspective, which also speaks to access, but in a different way. The productivity tools that you now find on social media applications. You TikTok of Chinese origin, for example, you can get there, just give a small video, but the amount of modifications that you can make to that video to make it into a production, a quality product, is that accessibility to production tools that is being brought by social media and this attached AI. So yes, accessibility in different ways, but that's the greatest advantage of social media. Yeah. Okay, in terms of productivity, obviously your research time for an article is reduced. Your video editing capabilities are reduced depending on which tools you use. Even your publishing times are reduced in terms of efficiency, in terms of the sheer number of articles you can produce, the sheer number of videos, graphics, you name it. So productivity has definitely been where you needed 10 production team, you can probably do it alone nowadays. So that's a major one. But obviously there's the downside. We're witnessing it, especially in our politics, where you see deepfakes. We've got people making presidents dance, or fake voices. So there is a downside to the advantages of AI, but I think our African nations have got a discerning listenership. They normally know how to distinguish between a deepfake, but it's a challenge that's worth noting into the future, that as the technology advances, it could pose a serious challenge for us in the future.
At New Vision, we now formulating a policy around AI, And I think that is because it's inevitable. It's a tool that has to be taken advantage of, and that is to a certain extent. So the important thing here is the governance. How much of AI are you going to use? What does it mean for the talent that you have, real human talent? What does it mean for the market in terms of the survival of businesses or media businesses? Because if I can use AI to deliver content or to tell stories, where does that leave a traditional media house like the New Vision? If I can design my adverts using AI, where does that leave the advertising agency? So it's about the governance in the AI ecosystem. Yes, it does so much in as far as boosting the resources, its production resources concerned. So where you have maybe someone who was supposed to clean audio, for example, AI can easily do that. You can run through a huge paper in seconds with the help of AI. But of course, the thing that I am confident about is the fact that AI cannot take the human touch of journalism or of media. I don't see a time when AI will ever do that. I don't think so. Because if I could ask AI right now to summarize what has happened here, but there is no way AI can do that in a way that I will describe the Cameroonian creator, in a way that I will talk about the general manager of the Public Affairs Department of Red Knot. There's no way AI can bring in those human senses and the human touch of the story. So AI is here to stay, and I'm sure something else will come after AI. We are always advancing, there are always disruptions, so it's about remaining as human as possible, remaining relevant to our audiences. And in Uganda right now, governance is the most important thing, and newsrooms have learned to design AI policies, yeah, just to control, how much of AI are you employing? And it's a problem for young journalists, especially, who now just ask AI to sometimes even cook stories. And this is not a case for Uganda only. This is a global problem. AI is cooking stories, and now we have to deal with maintaining loyalty, credibility, and trust with our audience thanks to AI. Yeah, so governance, openness, when employing AI, you have to indicate. Yeah, so it does help, and it's going to help us, but we have to regulate its use. So AI, in as far as building other interventions is concerned, like the Sunbird you talk about, our challenge in Africa for farmers especially is information on the weather patterns. So I think an app that, for example, can predict weather pattern, when are we receiving rains, when are we not receiving rains, can really help farmers. And also in managing stocks when it comes to the money, balancing books. Many farmers are not that much, educated. Some of them are illiterate. So AI tools like this application Sunbird can help them easily manage their finances and their produce through a simple, even USSD application that doesn't necessarily require a high-end smartphone. And you also have logistics, as you know, like grains are really difficult to manage. You want to know when your grains are getting maybe what is it called? When your grains are getting like when your grains are getting bad, you want to know, how much time do you need, temperatures and managing the tools. AI, for example, yes, we saw in Kunshan the high-end dryer, which yeah, it's online, it's digital. You don't need to interact with the heavy machinery physically. So this gentleman is just here and, just pressing buttons. So if we could have even AI helping Ugandan farmers to that extent, would benefit so much. It would save farmers a lot of money because many of the losses that farmers experience are because of information gap. Either it's unpredictability of weather that we don't know, maybe it's the way I'm counting my produce, maybe it's the way I am monitoring and storage my produce, maybe it's the way I'm processing. So AI can, in all these spheres, in the entire chain from the garden to the markets, AI can really help save farmers a lot of money.
It's very difficult to explain. I wonder what type of words I'm going to have to employ to be able to describe to my colleagues back in Zimbabwe the amount of the sheer organization that your AI solutions have brought. But to the benefits of the Chinese AI models, I think the first one, which is a major one, is actually the cost. And this does just apply to us Africans. Even in Europeans, I know big multi-corporations are actually applying Kim-K, DeepSeek, because it's actually very affordable for their solutions. For Africa, DeepSeek, for example, you want to do your research, it's free. So any newsroom can use it. You want to do your scripting. So that accessibility in terms of pricing, I think it's a real game changer, not just for Africa, but for the world at large. Okay, my view of the Chinese relationship is based on history, because I can't be able to understand the relationship between China today and Africa. And I always say this, and very passionately so. For us Africans, China helped a lot of African nations, including my own, back in the 60s. Even they helped us liberate ourselves. And mind you, this was at a time when China was not a superpower it is today. So it says a lot about who the Chinese people are, and therefore that guides our general view as Zimbabweans to who the Chinese are, with the type of respect we give them, the sincerity in their actions. So going forward, we need the newer generation to understand that full context. Because when people see the new investments, the mining deals, without that historical context to say, this is a friend since the 60s, this is a friend, even our own president, President Mnangagwa in Zimbabwe, he was trained in China, and today is the current president. So that history, we really need to consistently tell our younger generations about the importance and how it speaks to the current relationship between Africa and China. For Zimbabwe, for example, China back in the early 2000s, we were under threats of sanctions at UN, and China vetoed. So this is something that I would want the young ones to really understand. Had that China not vetoed, Zimbabwe would not be the Zimbabwe we know today, because we would have suffered grave. So that historical context should speak into the future and help explain who we are and why it is important to keep a very close and respectable relationship with our Chinese counterparts. Yeah.
Personally, I did create podcasts. It's called Beijing Chronicles. And this podcast generally features the experiences of New Vision journalists in China or anything related. So this is something that can actually run on the Beijing Chronicles. In 2024, when I was here for the Dongfang Scholarship, I had the opportunity of visiting several government agencies and the solar project, for example, in the Inner Mongolia. Yeah, so I took all that, and there was a lot of content, a lot of stuff to be shared with the Ugandan audience. And I thought, what better way than doing my own podcasts? And I also do write some of those stories that go into the podcast. I write for the newspaper. So that is me as an individual and what I can do. I continue to write about China. Sometimes I don't have to come into China. It's something happening in China or in Uganda, but related to the China-Africa relations. I write about that. And then also, generally, as media, as a platform, we need to bring closer the impacts of China-Africa relations. How much are we benefiting from China-Africa relations? What is the media doing to explain to someone who wants to start rice farming that China is teaching its own models of, planting rice in Uganda? These are projects that actually exist. What is the media doing to make the audience understand the impact of China contributing to the construction of our dam, which is contributing power to the national grid? What is the media doing to make the audience understand the impact of having a China-Uganda Friendship Hospital in Kampala? What does that mean for them? And why are these relationships important? So we should continue following the stories, where it's going. I'm sure it's going to a promising place. And we should keep an eye on that and, continue reporting about all these developments on China-Africa relations.
This is CGTN Radio. Hear the difference.